Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Gridiron Review. I'm Pete Medhurst alongside Bill Wagner. High school's Bill this week, and finally the run ends for Anne Arundel County. It ends for Annapolis as they take on one of the Montgomery County powers, Quince Orchard. And momentum is so critical in a football game. Annapolis had a chance to gain some very early in the game. A big penalty goes against them to negate a big play. All of a sudden, Quince Orchard just slowly and methodically started to wrestle the momentum back away from Annapolis, and you start to fall behind against quality teams like that. Coming from behind that far, that's a hard job. The Panthers couldn't get all the way back, losing 42-14.
Well, it's tough going on the road to Montgomery County, and Quince Orchard has been an outstanding high school football program for a long time. And as you mentioned, Pete, you can't fall behind in a game like that. What Annapolis needed more than anything was to be able to get out to a lead, build some confidence. You got to realize this is the first time for all of those Annapolis players and the coaching staff in that environment. And it's not easy going on the road into another county. I mean, you're used to playing Broadneck. When you're playing Broadneck at home, that's a whole different ball game than going on the road to Quince Orchard. And Quince Orchard with a really good defense. I mean, any defense that can pitch a shutout against Annapolis with their talent, offensive talent, as long as Quince Orchard did, that's impressive to me. They just fell behind too far. You can't play catch up like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And ironically, Cameron Hugh gets the nod as the Capitals football player of the year. And I think if you were to, as we talk about all of them here, you certainly separate the two awards. I think Hugh, definitely your public school guy. I think Evan Fockman probably is your private school guy as this season went along. And, you know, the thing about it with Hugh is I think, you know, as the season went along, everybody was paying attention, of course, to Old Mill and Cyrus Gay, and we probably thought that he was going to be the leading candidate. But, boy, the way Hugh emerged and really took leadership of the team, and as you pointed out in our last show, a guy that was going both ways and playing it at a high level on both sides of the football really just gives him a terrific, terrific edge.
That is always – I picked the player of the year for the Capital Gazette. You know, obviously it consulted with coaches and my other staff members, but ultimately when I was a high school sports editor, I had to make the final say, and I always leaned to a kid that went both ways. And I remember back, you know, it might have been like 2001, I can't remember the year, John Vereen at Severn School was a hard-hitting linebacker who had like 140 tackles and was also a dominant running back with big numbers. But Topper Ellis at North County High had like 1,900 yards rushing that year, may even have gone over 2,000, I don't remember. But I went with John Vereen because he played both ways. He impacted the game on both the offensive and defensive sides of the field, and to me, that is a separator. And when you're talking about Cameron Hugh against Broadneck, scores the game-winning touchdown, and on the very next series, he sacks the quarterback because he's a great linebacker. That, to me, is a difference. Evan Fockman's had a terrific season. The numbers he's put up are just spectacular. I had him in the paper last week. 1,800 yards rushing, over like 2,000 yards passing. He is a statistical machine and deserves all the accolades he can get. But, you know, I would lean to the guy that goes both ways, and I think Cameron Hugh was a good pick. It'll be interesting to see how it goes with the Rhodes Trophy voting. You know, that's the coaches. That's not the media. It is a little bit stacked in favor of a public school because you're talking about 12 public school coaches versus 5 private school coaches. So, you know, if the public school coaches vote as a block for the public school candidate, it's a little hard for that private school guy to get enough votes. But it's been done before. Zach Abey was a Rhodes Trophy winner. There's been private school Rhodes Trophy winners in the past. But it is difficult when you talk about the way the voting shapes up.
I was going to say, even though it is a popular vote, is there an electoral college involved in the voting for the coaches?
There is no electoral college when it comes to the Rhodes Trophy voting.
We've got popular vote with the head coaches. We've got these assistant coaches over here, position guys, that will be the electoral college and eventually make it.
What do you think?
If you live in Pasadena, you get more say. Because in Anne Arundel County, if you live north of Route 50 in Anne Arundel County, you get a lot more say than those of us who live south of Route 50. That's kind of like the Electoral College. Severna Park, Pasadena, that's the Electoral College in Anne Arundel County.
What do you think of this state championship, Pete? Quince, Orchard, and Wise. Wise hasn't lost a game. What are they, 28 straight wins?
Pumas.
Yeah.
Pumas got big-time D1 ability. They got a couple of big-time D1 recruits on that club. I think Quince Orchard defensively, and because they're such a well-coached team, I think they can keep the game interesting and close for a decent portion of it. But if they turn the ball over at all, or give Wise any kind of short field position, Pumas are going to make them pay. Right. I mean, Wise in a really good run right now. But, of course, again, newest school so far in Prince George's County. Got a lot of bells and whistles at that school that they don't have at a lot of other places in PG County. So right now, in terms of the population, a lot of those kids that anywhere remotely close to Wise, they're doing whatever they can to funnel into Wise. And as we know, Prince George's County athletics, unfortunately, is a case of the wild, wild west compared to a lot of other places.
And we should point out that the head coach of Wise is Severn native DeLon Parrish.
He's done a hell of a job there.
Yeah, he came out of the Severn Athletic Club program. In fact, his coach, because I was at the Maryland Gazette compiling youth football results, and Mike Francis was coaching the Severn Athletic Club at the time when DeLon Parrish was a great player. And so DeLon, we got to give him credit. He's a county guy.
Yeah, no doubt. He's done a super, super job there. They've had a target on their back at all times in Prince George's County, and they answer the call at all times over at Wise as well. We come back. Speaking of answering the call, Maryland had to do it to get bowl eligible. They did. Navy just put up another 75 points on Saturday. We'll tell you all about that when we return on the Gridiron Review. It was Festivus in College Park on Saturday. While there weren't a lot of people there to actually watch the game, those that were saw Maryland get to be bowl eligible, and by the end of the game, Bill, they saw a marriage proposal for one of Maryland's players. So it was a happy day in College Park for everybody. But for DJ Durkin, let's face it, Bill, going into next year, what you're planning for next year, it's a great reward for the seniors to get a bowl game, but here's another 15, 16 extra practices maybe for DJ Durkin's underclassmen who are coming back for year 2 of the DJ Durkin era.
Really, I think this is all you could have asked for in your first year, to be bowl eligible. And as you mentioned, the extra practice time is huge. Continue to build your culture. I think DJ's done a terrific job. As we've talked about on this show, Maryland is light years away from the top programs in the Big Ten, the Penn States, the Ohio States, the Michigans of the world. That's going to be a couple-year project to get anywhere near competing with them. But this is a great result. Would have been devastating to lose to Rutgers at home and not get bowl eligible. We do have to say, Maryland fans, I know it's been a tough season and you're a little disappointed, but that turnout was just embarrassing. I saw a photo taken right before kickoff, and there was no one in the stands at Maryland Stadium. You got to show up for your team. They have a chance to become bowl eligible. You got to support throughout the season. It's not just choose to support when you want to. You were mentioning it was Caleb Rowe, the backup quarterback, who did propose to his girlfriend, and she accepted. Perry Hills was back for Maryland. That was a big lift. Running game, got some things going. Just a good result for Maryland. It's interesting. The Touchdown Club of Annapolis picks an MVP for Maryland that we honor at the banquet each year. I'm at a loss as to who is the MVP of the Maryland football team this year. Last year, Will Likely won it, and deservingly so, but he's been injured.
That was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah, but he got injured early in the year and hasn't been around. Jermaine Carter, their linebackers, had a great year, but I'm sitting here saying I don't know who the MVP of the University of Maryland football program is.
That's a great question, because Perry Hills has been in and out of the lineup. Maybe Ty Johnson could get some consideration.
Lorenzo Harrison was making a run if he
obviously got suspended at the end of the year.
I
Shane Cockrell, another
Possibly.
guy that would be somebody that you would have to consider as well.
We're going to have to consult with the coaching staff on that, I think.
Yeah, somebody just, all you got to do is email durkin@umd.edu. I believe it is, something like that. Somebody will intercept it and show it to coach, and he'll give you an opinion. Meanwhile, the Naval Academy goes down to Dallas, takes on SMU. Hey, a piece of adversity for the Mids for the first time in a couple of weeks. They fumble a kickoff, and all of a sudden SMU has a 24-21 lead with just under 3 minutes to go by the time Navy gets the ball back. And Will Worth engineers the 2-minute drill of all 2-minute drills. They score with 6 seconds remaining in the first half on a touchdown pass. And this was one of the things we hadn't seen really from Will on a consistent basis, because Navy hadn't been in that position an awful lot, and all he did was take them right down the field and score again. They had the lead at halftime. scored to start the second half, and all of a sudden all that momentum SMU thought they had at the end of the half, by the time SMU would score again, Navy had run off 38 straight points.
Yeah, it was very similar.
Ball game.
Very similar to what happened the week before at East Carolina. Just don't give Navy an opening because they're going to close the door on you, and that's exactly what happened. Shaun White, who is looking very good lately, 255 pounds, Shaun White with a little bit of speed, it broke another long run as he did the week prior against East Carolina, and then play of the game, your guy Justin Norton, who is a newcomer to the lineup.
Second game as an outside linebacker.
That's right. He'd been third string, and what happened was they moved the backup outside linebacker, Brandon Jones, inside, and then Josiah Powell got injured, and all of a sudden Justin Norton's the starter, and all he's done is make a career-high 8 tackles against East Carolina and a pick 6, a 26-yard interception return for a touchdown, which really pretty much turned the tide in favor of Navy, and Navy just kept pouring it on. And I really almost can't believe what I'm seeing in terms of the numbers are outstanding, Pete.
How about the local product, Zach Abey out of Spalding, guy coming through with a big-time relief effort. He came in late in the third quarter. I mean, Navy's taking their starters out late in the third quarter.
That's right.
They were playing primarily against SMU's ones on both offense and defense. Zach Abey comes in the game, 55-yard run immediately, stumbled twice on the runner. He probably would have scored. Did get his touchdown eventually.
On a 47-yard run.
Yeah, so Anthony he actually, that's the first time anybody can find in recorded statistics to have 2 Navy quarterbacks over 100 yards. At least since 1950, because that's, as far back as we can find.
And it's very encouraging. We've all been waiting to see what Zach Abey could do up until now. He got into the East Carolina game at mop-up time, and they had a 40-yard drive or something like that. Not enough of a sampling to tell what he could do, but that was a very encouraging what he did against SMU. If you're a Navy fan, you're like, okay, we got another quarterback in the pipeline.
Does that surprise you with Ivan Jasper, though?
Well, and that's what we have to say. How much longer is Navy going to have Ivan Jasper? Because what Navy has done this year with a third-string quarterback taking over and putting up the points and numbers, the yard totals that they are putting up, Ivan Jasper, somebody's got to finally give this guy a job. And what will happen life after Ivan Jasper? You're talking about somebody else is going to have to train these quarterbacks. Someone else is going to have to be calling the plays in the press box, because that is what makes Navy so good, is they look at what you're doing defensively and they adjust. And if you adjust defensively, they adjust right back. There's 2 people in this world that can do that, and it's Ivan Jasper and Paul Johnson. Obviously, Ken Niumatalolo could, but he's not going up in the box. So if Ivan Jasper leaves, Navy's got some voids to fill.
Yeah, but I think they've got some offensive guys on that staff who are in those same meetings who hopefully have learned from him as the year has gone along.
Knowing the offense and calling the plays during a game are 2 different things. I mean, that is an innate trait that you have, to be able to call plays,
no doubt,
get into a rhythm, to be able to look at what the defense is doing and know exactly what to go to. Ivan Jasper learned it at the foot of the master, Paul Johnson. Let's hope that someone has been learning from Ivan Jasper all this time. I'm looking at Ashley Ingram as the most likely candidate of a guy that I would have call plays. I can't speak for Ken Niumatalolo, but it is a question out there as to what would happen if Ivan Jasper leaves.
Pros coming up next. The Redskins had to wait an extra day for some turkey, and it probably didn't taste as good as if they'd have not played on Thursday. Then we'll talk about the Ravens, who beat the Bengals, and still they are at the top of a very rough division right now. Doesn't matter what your record is, as long as you're first, and the Ravens are right now. We'll talk about that when we return on the Gridiron Review. Most highly watched Fox football game ever, Thanksgiving Day. Redskins and the Cowboys. And the Cowboys outlast the Redskins 31-26. Redskins chased points a couple times, also went onside kick. Didn't get enough to beat the Cowboys. Dak Prescott continues to impress Ezekiel Elliott. Redskins did a decent job on him from really keeping him from dominating games like he has at times this year. But in the end, Cowboys just made one more play than the Redskins did on Thanksgiving Day.
Well, the Redskins got to improve their red zone offense. They got down there several times and settled for field goals, one of which was missed after the worst timing of a timeout in Jay Cruden's short time with the Redskins.
And one kicking into a blinding sun where basically, Dustin Hopkins is looking forward, and it's just like somebody shined a big, bright light, this big headlight right in his face. He couldn't see the uprights.
Right. Well, and you take Dustin Hopkins out of the equation by finishing. When you get to the 5-yard line, you punch it in and you finish. And really, at the end of the game, you have to rue those opportunities in a high-scoring affair. But offense played well. Cowboys have been doing this to everybody, so it's hard to get too worried about the Redskins defense. Cowboys have been scoring on everyone. Cowboys proved that as of now, they're the team to beat in the National Football League moving forward. The 10 in a row, you can't argue with that.
They just really picked on Kendall Fuller in the slot all day. Put Dez in the slot, caught a couple balls against him. Also, Cole Beasley caught whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted against Fuller as well.
And we got to say though, Kirk Cousins, great performance. This is the Kirk Cousins we saw toward the end of last season. That's some pretty fabulous numbers, and he's in some pretty good company among Redskins.
Balling out.
Yes,
he's balling out. About the only guy that's still ahead of him, I think, in terms of yardage, is Sonny Jurgensen. Meanwhile, Justin Tucker, he looks great on those Royal Farms commercials when he sings really loud and things of that nature.
The opera singer.
The dude can kick a football, man. 3 field goals of 50 yards plus against the Cincinnati Bengals in a 19-14 victory. And right now, because they beat the Steelers in the one head-to-head matchup they've got, the Ravens are still in first place in the AFC North. And, Bill, as we know, you just got to get to January. Once you get there, anything can happen in a 60-minute period. There's still a lot to question and dislike about this Ravens team. Their want to is not something you can question, though. It's a ball club that's really, fighting tooth and nail and hanging in there and doing whatever it's got to do to win a football game.
Right. Well, it was nice to see Elvis Dumerville finally get back on the field, and he made an impact.
Help impact the game.
At the very end of the game, he strips Andy Dalton of the ball, and that's ball game. Terrell Suggs with a fantastic game. He really was a playmaker.
Not 100%.
Right, but still making plays, really impacted the game defensively. And, it was interesting. At one point, the Ravens were debating whether to attempt a field goal. It would have been a 57-yarder, I believe. Justin Tucker ran on the field and started warming up, basically telling John Harbaugh, there is no decision here. Yeah. I'm kicking it. Came in here on the way to the studio listening to 105.7 The Fan, the Baltimore sports station, and nothing but complaints about Joe Flacco. The Ravens score on their first possession and do not get into the end zone the rest of the day. People are wondering, when is Joe Flacco going to get it together? Then when is this offense going to get it together? Moving forward, there's concerns. You can't win games and go to a championship with nothing but field goals.
Yeah, you're playing. Again, it comes down to personnel. You analyze the roster, and so I'm one of those geeks that does that. You're playing with basically 2 wide receivers, a tight end with a broken hip who's doing whatever he can to stay out there. You look at Terrell Suggs, him and Dumerville, no question they're not 100%. Those are 2 guys that are just playing their rear ends off. There's a lot to dislike about the roster offensively. They've still got running backs that need to step up consistently, an offensive line that has been hurt consistently throughout the year. So still a lot of things that they've got to examine. I think John Harbaugh is doing as good a coaching job as you can ask him to do with the roster that he has available to them right now in terms of its health as well.
I agree. At the beginning of the year, I didn't think the Ravens were that good of a football team, and here they are in first place, and they've beaten all of their division opponents, and ultimately that's what counts. You win the division, you're in the playoffs. Not only are you in the playoffs, you're home hosting a playoff game.
At least one game.
I give John Harbaugh credit. I think they're doing as much as they can with what they have. But offensively, if they do not somehow find a way to turn it up a notch, score more touchdowns, they're really not going to go very far if they do make the playoffs.
Maybe they should hire Ivan Jasper as the offensive coordinator.
Might not be a bad idea.
That'll do it for us this week. As always, we appreciate you watching. You can watch it online at aacounty.org. You can find it on YouTube as well. For Bill Wagner, I'm Pete Medhurst. Thanks for joining us this week on this edition of the Gridiron Review.